Welcome, Planeswalkers, to MTG Lore. I'm Josh, your host, and I'm excited you have come back for another story. Today, my focus is the event in Magic's latest novel, War of the Spark Ravnica. This will be my first series, so I hope you guys can enjoy and have something to look forward to. Obviously, the show today will contain many spoilers that have to do with the storylines in the novel. I do recommend you read it if you have a chance, as I enjoyed it a lot. The way the book was written is phenomenal and gives you a lot of insight into the characters' personalities that a story highlight like today does not focus on. I will be following the story as you read it in the novel. It gives many perspectives to what happens and gives a great grasp on events as they happen. I hope you enjoy. We start off in an unknown place that we learn later to be the meditation plane, created by Ugin, but currently owned by Nicol Bolas. Ugin the Spirit Dragon talks with Niv Mizzet's dragon spirit projected from a little silver box that Niv created. The two dragons spoke of Sarkon Vol, and how essential his timing was bringing Niv's spirit to Ugin. The two dragons both contemplated whether or not the plan they have laid out will work. They both agree that everyone must do exactly their part. Only time will tell. Teo Virata, shield mage from the plane of Gobakan. He is an acolyte of the Order of the Shield Mage, but lacks many skills compared to his peers. Teo was in the large city of Oasis, the first city he had ever visited. The group of acolytes traveled through the deserts of Gobakan back to their monastery. Suddenly, the group was engulfed by a diamond storm. These were common in this world, and was the prime purpose of the shield mages, to protect settlements from the devastating powers of the flying diamonds. The group of acolytes started to form multi-pointed shapes, but Teo. He struggled to get that of a triangle summoned while his comrades were fighting off diamonds with diamonds. During these events, we see Teo's teacher degrade him, with many comments beating him down, not encouraging him. After many failed attempts at holding back the storm with his fellow acolytes, Teo was tranced by lights we learn only he could see. Teo lowered his insignificant shields, stumbling deeper into the dying storm. Sand and stray diamonds scored his skin while he closed his eyes to the storm. Teo could still see the light and stumbled off of a dune, being buried in sand. He thought to summon an advanced sphere to save him, but he had never managed one bigger than his fist. Sand gave out all around, burying him alive. He struggled to breathe, struggled to move. The light would be the last thing Teo would ever see, as one last burst of light felt like death. Teo disintegrated into grains of sand. Later, on the plane of Kaladesh, we find planeswalkers Chandra Nalaar, Jace Beleren, Ajanli Goldmane, Jaya Ballard, Teferi, and Karin. This meeting was not an accident, as they all wanted to side together to defeat the Elder Dragon, Nicol Bolas. They all are waiting for Gideon Jura to come back from Dominaria with Liliana Vess, the missing piece of the Gatewatch. Not many in attendance had hoped that Liliana would join their side, but Gideon did. They all had history. Jace was her lover at one point in time, and Chandra saw her as an older sister. Chandra felt a call from across the plains, something she had never felt before. All of the other walkers felt it as well, a call from Ravnica, they all agreed. Moments later, Gideon arrived in a burst of golden light. He carried Blackblade, the soul-drinking sword that the entire plan hinged on. Gideon found no sign of Liliana on Dominaria, and knew she had left the plane before this Ravnica calling. They all knew this calling could be a trap set by Bolas, but had to go anyway to save the multiverse. So they planeswalked away to the plane of Ravnica. On Ravnica, we meet Planeswalker Ral Zarek, after a fight with Planeswalker Vraska. Lavinia and Planeswalker Kaya lay unconscious next to Hikara in a pool of her own blood. The still alive awoke and asked of Vraska and if their battle was successful. Ral assumed that the Planeswalker had fled before he was able to bolt her to a crisp. They all had history with the Elder Dragon, but had all found their right path again and were trying to build a defense for their plane. Ral and his prior guildmaster Niv Mizzet designed a device called the Beacon. It called out to planeswalkers across the multiverse and summoned them to Ravnica. All Ral's plan consisted of was to get as many planeswalkers to Ravnica as possible and fight. Liliana Vess definitely found her way to Ravnica as expected, and watched as her master Bolas and planeswalker Tezzeret magically manipulated the ground to sculpt Bolas's citadel and obelisk. The necromancer Vess found herself a pawn in Bolas's grand scheme, just like many before her. Bolas dismissed the two walkers, admiring his work so far, and took their servitude for granted. On his hands and knees, Teo coughed up a lot of sand. Teo felt stone under his hands, sun on his face, and air in his lungs, none of which he thought he could ever feel again. He was alive. Teo noticed a young girl sitting on a fence railing and asked her for help. Surprised, she came over and assisted him to his feet and introduced herself as Rat. "No one ever notices me," she said. Teo asked where he was and got a very confusing answer. "You were on the Transguild Promenade," Rat said. Confused, Teo followed Rat and made silent discussion, meaning she did all the talking. He finally grabbed her arms and said, "I am Teo. I don't belong to any of these guilds you speak of. I'm an acolyte of the Shield Mage Order." Rat had never heard of the Shield Mage Order. Teo muttered to himself many fuzzy sentences and came to the conclusion of he must still be on Gobokan. "You're standing on Gobokan," he muttered. Rat explained to him her world of Ravnica and hypothesized Teo to be a planeswalker. Doubtfully, Teo hesitated the thought he wasn't on his home world anymore, but after much convincing from Rat, he started to believe. Rat taught Teo as much as she could in the short walk. He was caught up to speed on Vraska's latest assassination of Mistress Inspiria, the Azorius Guildmaster, and the current dysfunction between all of Ravnica's guilds because of it. Jace Bellerin Plains walked into his office of the Living Guild Pack on Ravnica. Much aware of the potential trap that could be set, he created an illusion of himself and hid his true self with the spell of invisibility. Gideon and Ajani arrived at the same time, followed by Jaya, Teferi, Karin, and last Chandra. Jace's assistant, Lavinia, came running into his base, thrilled to see everyone. Jace informed her of Nico Bolas's arrival. Unsurprised, she went to the window and opened the shutters, revealing Bolas's obelisk. Jace demanded they all be brought up to speed, and Lavinia obliged. She told everyone of Niv-Mizzet's death, trying to defeat the invading dragon. She also went on to the state of all the guilds' unity, or lack thereof. Many of the guilds were unwilling to ally with anyone else. Very few were stepping up to help. We find out of the untrustworthy Azorius Guildmaster, Dovin Ban. Chandra knew of Ban from her home plane of Kaladesh. Jace tried testing the trap theory he felt when he first walked into his office on Gideon, telling him to try and planeswalk away. Suspiciously, Gideon burst into his gold dust, and not even 2 seconds later returned with a glowing crest of the Azorius above his head. Just what Jace had suspected. The immortal sun had been activated to keep all other planeswalkers from fleeing, but in hand with the Izzet Tower will also pull all planeswalkers to Ravnica. Bolas's trap had been set. Gideon is a straightforward warrior, and did not like plans very much, but compromised with a small group consisting of Jace, Teferi, Lavinia, and himself. The rest stayed back in Jace's office as a failsafe, and the obvious choices were Chandra and Jaya, as they could not harm an Elder Dragon with their fire. Gideon and his group found their way invisible, thanks to Jace, towards Bolas's citadel, when a sonic boom and a rush of desert air hit them from behind. Everyone whipped around in a horror to a giant portal, knocking over buildings and crushing the people of Ravnica. Tezzeret had stolen the planar bridge from Chandra's home plane of Kaladesh, and just then Gideon realized his friends were still in the building this portal just destroyed. A while later, we meet Dak Faden, the greatest thief in the multiverse, he liked to say. It was not his first time to Ravnica, though. He had been in Orzhov territory a little over a month ago, borrowing money for his casing mission of valuable artifacts on the plane of Innistrad. Dak was pulled to Innistrad just like the others and was not thrilled about it. He started towards the center of the city and immediately noticed the new addition to the 10th District Plaza, the Citadel an obelisk, and a portal into another world. Chandra and the team didn't know what hit them. The floor of Jace's office was now slanted and part of the building was missing. Chandra found her way into the hall to help Jaya burn a piece of timber that landed on Ajani's leg. Jace telepathically checked on the team and everyone was okay, and then would find their way out of the demolished building to safety. Bolus was insulted. He felt every single planeswalker land on the plane of Ravnica, especially the mighty Gatewatch. Jace, Gideon, Teferi, and Lavinia were below Bolus in the plaza, and they thought the powerful dragon could not see them because of Jace's invisibility spell. The dragon knew where the entire party was at all times, including their comrades Ajani, Chandra, Jaya, and Karin inside the embassy. Bolus felt planeswalkers Tamio and Kiora arrive as Ajani had predicted, followed by Narset and then Samut to get revenge on the dragon for ruining her home world of Amonkhet. Obnixilus landed in Rakdos territory to make things interesting. Bolus mocked all these heroes arriving trapped in his plan, but ants don't strategize, they simply follow their instincts. Endlessly repeating the same actions, no matter the result, he snarled. Bolus was immortal, and would catch every planeswalker whether they came to Ravnica today or not. He was a god once, and his plan was to be a god again. Jace had enough. After all, he was the living guild pack of Ravnica. Jace never wanted the power, because of the great responsibility it brought with it. The magic that bound Ravnica and the 10 guilds found their primary locus in the person of Jace Beleren. Whatever Jace declared as law came instantly into being. Like a judge, he had to interpret the written guild pack when making his pronouncements. Jace had to take his power slow with the matter at hand, Bolus. The planar bridge put things over the top, and an opportunity presented itself to Jace to punish Bolus with the law of Ravnica. Jace Beleren summoned the full power of the living guild pack. The dragon Bolus has murdered Ravnican citizens and interfered with the guild pack by destroying its embassy. As living guild pack, this is my decree. Close that portal. Execute Bolus. Nothing happened. Jace searched for the power he once knew on this plane, and nothing. All this time they thought the planar bridge was open at a random location, but it wasn't. All of Ravnica's magic meets at the Living Guild Pack's plaza, and the planar bridge had dug into the earth right in the middle of the courtyard, disrupting the magic that flowed in Ravnica. Jace knew his commands and powers dissolved without the plane of Ravnica behind him. In the back of Jace's mind, he could hear the dragon laugh. Gideon had a heart larger than himself. All he wanted to do was help others. Some considered this his biggest downfall. He ran out of formation towards the portal to help those hurt by the carnage. He then saw a friend he once knew, Liliana Vess. She was stepping up onto some wreckage as they met eyes. Gideon smiled and told everyone as they followed him towards the portal. Gideon smiled and told everyone of Liliana's presence as they followed him towards the portal. Jace locked onto the portal, and the party noticed following his eyes to the portal's mouth. An army. The Amonkhet army Bolus created. It was marching through the portal. Everyone was confused how this was possible. Only inorganic items could pass through the portal. Gideon figured it out though, faster than anyone else. On Amonkhet, the Gatewatch had uncovered Bolus's long-term plans. The culture in Amonkhet was to train to be the best warrior you could be, and if you were the best, perfect, and unbeatable, you were killed in honor and mummified. When mummified, you were embalmed in layers of blue lazotep mineral until fully coated. Little about them remained organic after this treatment. These warriors were then resurrected, with all the skills and strength they trained so long to achieve, except with no free will of their own. Only Bolus could these Eternals now serve. Gideon watched as Liliana and the Chain Veil emitted a powerful purple magic. The Eternal's eyes lit a bright purple and looked at Liliana as she waved her arm towards an injured group of Ravnicans. Gideon hoped, with his big heart, she was sending these monsters to help them, but had his heart broken. The Eternals just finished off the injured and wounded with no hesitation. Now Gideon knew another was added to the list. Liliana Vess must die. Flanks of Eternals marched onto Ravnica's soil, turning purple as soon as they were fully through the portal. Liliana's past has placed her in a bad spot. Nico Bolas had been a part of her life ever since the Mending. During this time, Liliana had lost the majority of her power and lusted to be immortal and godlike once again. She had Nico Bolas negotiate a contract with 4 demons. Liliana became their servant, and in return, she was the self she wanted to be, all-powerful, young, and beautiful. Over millennia, she had killed them all, and Liliana thought she'd be free, but she wasn't. The contract defaulted to Bolus as the negotiator, and she was now directly his pawn. Liliana did not want to hurt all these innocent people on Ravnica. Liliana refused the Elder Dragon once, and was promised death if she were ever to disobey him again. She was holding out, hoping her friends would defeat Bolus and set her and Ravnica free. I thank you for listening to part 1 of my War of the Spark Ravnica recap. I appreciate all the feedback and requests I'm getting on Twitter. Keep it coming. I also just created an Instagram for some behind the scenes photos and such. Both handles are @LoreMTG. Continue to share this podcast to your local communities and online friends, as I want the magic story to get spread to as many people as possible. Part 2 is currently being written, and I will get it out as fast as I can. Thanks again for listening.